Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the September 8th meeting of the Early Learning Board. The first order of business is to read the mission. Is Justina on the call? She was going to read today. Let's see. I'll go ahead and read the mission. She may be having troubles finding parking. She was going to come in person. The Early Learning Board mission is to support children's academic and lifelong well-being by directing and supporting the Executive Office on Early Learning for an effective, coordinated, high-quality early learning system from prenatal to kindergarten entry. Just a reminder to keep this in focus as we carry on our deliberations and conversations for today. It gives meaning to our work. Next, do a roll call of membership to ascertain if we have a quorum on it. Justina.
Here.
Thank you.
Perfectly.
We're glad you're here. Erin.
Here.
Thank you and welcome back. Okay,
Thank you.
Aloha, I'm here.
Megan. Megan. Jen.
Here.
Okay. May.
Here.
Bob Peters is here. Right, Ali.
Here.
Thank you. Mari.
Yeah.
Carrie.
Here.
Melody.
Aloha, I'm here.
Thank you. Dana. Luca.
Here.
Rochelle Mahoy. Steve Schatz. Steve.
Here.
Thank you. Matt Shim.
Here.
Thank you. And we do have a quorum, so we may proceed to take action in this meeting. The announcements for today are fairly many to actually, probably the one that will be most pleasing to everyone is that masks are now optional in this room. So if you prefer to not wear a mask, the Food Center is allowing that to happen. We will leave it up to members to determine if they wish to be masked or not during these meetings. And thank you for that option, Christina. I think it will make many people happy. The second item of business is that we have no need for an executive session today. There was no indication that the executive session minutes needed further discussion, so we will take action on them at that point in the meeting when we approve the minutes. We also have an announcement from Ali, so I'm going to ask her if she would share her announcement with us, please.
Thanks, Bob. Aloha, everybody. I am announcing that I will be stepping down from the Early Learning Board, and Napua Rosehill will be taking my place. I believe she's somewhere on Zoom. She will be representing Kamehameha Schools moving forward. Long background in early learning as an educator, as someone that's has had oversight in program and development. And she is also in my office as a strategic consultant that works on all of our enterprise efforts in early learning. So I will still be overseeing all of our efforts in early learning. I've just accepted other responsibilities at Kamehameha, which just made me think through how to shift some of my time and effort. And so I won't be very far. I'll still be doing much of the early learning strategy at Kamehameha School. So I've just appreciated you, Bob, for all of the time that you spent with me on the board, off the board, in discussions about our work. and just really just this board has been amazing, and I'm looking forward to continuing to support all of the good work that the board is doing. So this will be my last, officially my last ELB meeting. So mahalo, everybody.
We want to welcome Napua. Eager to get to work with her and learn more about her and share her accomplishments with us. But at the same time, at least I personally am saddened. Why Ali, we go back way back, a number of years ago, and it's always been a pleasure to work with you. And your contributions to this board have been very much appreciated. Your leadership, particularly at a governance subcommittee, and your willingness to accept every charge that we threw in your direction and navigate through it has really made a difference to the organization of this board. Plus, just your general understanding and support of young children and the issues of equity have kept them uppermost in our minds. And we so appreciated the opportunity to work alongside with you and to think together. The thinking together has been most powerful. So even though you will not be sitting at the board meetings, we still know how to get in touch with you. And so we may be knocking on your door occasionally to say, "Boy, Ali, we need your sage advice. Would you give us some input?" Thank you so much from all of the board. We're sad to see you go, totally understand, but we're excited to welcome Napua at the same time. Mahalo nui. Given the fact that Ali is leaving the board at this point, it leaves a vacancy in the governance subcommittee, standing subcommittee for a convener. And once again, as most of the early learning board members do, one of our members on that subcommittee has stood up and agreed to serve as the convener in that role, and that's Matt Shim from the Department of Health. So Matt, I want to thank you for your willingness to take on that convener role. And did you want to say anything to the group about your thoughts about a meeting and to remind people who sit on that board?
Hi, everybody. Thanks again, Ali. I got big shoes to fill. I will be convening the next meeting on September 16th. And so I'll be reaching out to Marie to transfer some of the files. And I'm happy to say that on August 1st, I was able to hire the division secretary. So I actually have administrative support now, yay. And I would invite other members of the early learning board who are interested. If you would like to serve on the governance committee, just let me know. Right now we have myself, Bob, Rochelle, and Dana Luca. And then hopefully we'll be welcoming Napua if she's interested. But then anybody else is welcome. So thanks, Bob.
Thank you, Matt. And what time on the 16th is the meeting going to be?
We'll keep it the same time at 11 o'clock on the 16th. And
All right.
I'll send out a new recurring meeting invite.
Okay, thank you. Napua, I will circle back with you to share some more information, and we'd love to have you on that subcommittee, but we can also talk about other possible committees that you might be interested in. Membership on the committees has pretty much been a self-selection process, or inherited as people move from position to position. So Matt, thank you again for stepping up to take on that responsibility. All right, those are the announcements for this particular meeting, more than we normally have in our regular monthly times together. So let's move to item number 2, the approval of the minutes. We have 2 sets of minutes to approve. Is there a motion to approve the August 11th, 22nd public minutes as presented.
I move to approve the minutes.
Okay, thank you, Justina. Is there a second? Thanks, Maury. Motion has been made and seconded to approve the August 11th, 2022 public minutes. Is there any discussion? We'll give everyone a few minutes to take a quick review. All right, hearing no comments to be offered, we will do a roll call vote to approve the public minutes from the August 8th, 2022 meeting. Justina?
Aye.
Aaron?
Aye.
Okay, Eleni?
Aye.
Megan? Kim?
Aye.
May, excuse me.
Aye.
I vote aye. Why, Ali?
Aye.
Mary?
Aye.
Carrie?
Aye.
And Melody?
Aye.
The minutes have been approved as submitted. We'll now move on to the executive session minutes, which the board has received, and a reminder that these remain confidential. There has been no indication of a discussion needed, so I would like a motion, however, in a second to approve them.
So moved.
Thank you. Was that you, Carrie?
It was.
Okay. Is there a second?
Why, Ali, second.
Okay, thank you. Motion has been made and seconded to approve the executive session minutes of August 11th, 2022. Justina?
Aye.
Karen?
Aye.
Yeleni?
Aye.
Ken?
Aye.
May?
Aye.
I vote aye. Why, Ali?
Aye.
Mari?
Aye.
Carrie?
Aye.
And Melody?
Aye.
Okay, the minutes have been approved as presented. Thank you, everyone. And the floor is now open for any public comment. A reminder that there is a time limit and the comments must relate to items on the agenda. Or any public comment to be heard at this point in the meeting.
Hello. Hello, how are you? I'm Linda Elento, and I just wanted to I had a couple of questions or comments for the Early Learning Board. I had once given, I guess, some comments earlier this year for the legislative session or within the last year. So kind of following up from that, my interest has been more the Early Learning Board with the changes the legislature made, I guess, was it 5 years ago or so, and how you're working with the Board of Education, but also working with children with disabilities. Because I've been through the system, my son is now 21. Through those 21 years of having a child with disabilities and two who are older, I've met a lot of families with children with disabilities and without. So I wanted to ask three things. First of all, with the composition of the board, I know that's one of the topics of discussion, is that parents be included. Not just another, I guess, chair of another committee, but an actual parent, and who maybe is not involved with another similar committee already. Also for the, just an idea that I wanted to bring up that is a need in our community with the Department of Human Services. Parents like myself, and now I'm a grandparent, are very appreciative of the child block grants, childcare, whether you're through the preschool open doors or through working the certain requirements. One thing I wanted to ask that you all would be able to have some say in or do research on or contribute to the Department of Human Services requirements for granting funding for the little ones, for moms who want to homeschool their child, but maybe one needs to needs the funding to go to preschool. But what would happen is if if one parent works or goes to school, but the second one is homeschooling, they would automatically not be allowed to have that funding under the childcare like we're doing for my grandson right now. And it's just been very helpful, and lives are changed. I mean, our families have to make decisions based on funding. And when it comes to a requirement like that, I think it's unfair to those who want to homeschool because it would keep them from working full time. But also for the charter school students who part of the time they're at home or they're doing work online. Again, those would also be affected if they require a parent to be home. That would be taking, that requirement ought to be able to be adjusted or looked at, but we would need someone like you guys to be able to look at that and suggest it to the legislature, administrators, and so forth. Last one, last year there was an early intervention services bill that was discussed at the legislature. There are providers that are supporting it, whereas we're extending the early intervention age instead of cutting off under the IDA, cutting off services when the kids turn 3. They would consider, especially military families and other families, would be able to continue early intervention based on what their child needs or based on their lifestyle versus having to keep hopping around and work with so many paperwork and teams. So thank you for this time. And again, my name's Linda Elinto, and I'd be glad to answer questions or be involved with any kind of stakeholder input, not just people who serve our kids, but parents equally serve or take care of our kids. So thank you very much.
Thank you for your testimony, Linda. Any other public comment? Hearing none, we'll move to item 4 on the agenda, and I'm going to ask Justina if she would introduce this item and our guest for today.
I wanted to introduce folks to, I'll go back over to my spot. I'm not sure where we put that, but I wanted to introduce first Karen and welcome. So I wanted to introduce folks to Karen Shore. She's joining us today, and she is working with the team, the advisory group for the Hawaii Integrated Infant and Early Childhood Behavioral Health Plan. She's been working with us since last November, maybe officially December, but that work has been underway for longer than that. And if you guys will remember, the Early Learning Board was actually instrumental in requesting the development of an integrated infant and early childhood behavioral health plan. So what Karen is actually helping us do is to keep us on track with actually a lot of the implementation priorities. And we thought now, because it's been about a year since we've given you guys an update on that plan itself, now would be a really nice time because a new plan has, a kind of revised plan has come out for Karen to give you an update on where we're at with the implementation efforts. And we can take some questions. It will just be very short, but it happened to line up that she was in town for some other work, and we were having the Early Learning Board meeting. So I thought this was just a great opportunity. Thank you so much for joining us, Karen.
Oh, thank you, Justina. Is it okay if I take my mask off for the presentation?
Yes.
Okay, is that all right?
And
Okay.
Jordana has your slides. She'll just, if you
Okay.
say advance, she'll know to.
I'll put that back on. and just-
It really is optional.
Okay, just like, I know people are close by, so I want to be mindful of that. So thank you so much for letting me join you all today. I'm delighted to be here, and I was holding up this copy of the plan. It's version 2.0. Yuko just told me that it's on the EOEL website under state plans and the version 2.0, and there's a cover letter that goes with it. So it talks about the work that has been underway to date, and then what folks are interested in focusing on in the upcoming year. So the version 1.0 is on the left and 2.0 is on the right there. So look forward to chatting, and I have my contact information at the end if people want to reach out as well afterward. Next slide, please. So this was just a little bit of background. As Justina mentioned, you all were involved in this in 2020, and the really desire to have something that integrated infant early childhood behavioral health, and address the needs of KICKI ages 0 to 5. And so lots of different departments and agencies and nonprofits and other types of organizations involved in this work, but not sort of an integrated approach, and very common. Same, I'm from California, it's the same there. And I like the sentiment at the end. It's not the Kuleana at any one agency, but all of our Kuleana, to be able to really build the system of care and take care of the mental health and behavioral health needs of those little kiddos. So that's it. Next slide, please. So again, integrated, so not standalone. There's, you know, issues of silos and people kind of not always being able to be at the table together. But really wanted to intentionally align child and family serving systems and work toward creating equitable systems of care to help reduce racial and socioeconomic disparities, and really just to set everybody up for a successful time in school and in life. Next slide, please. So in 2020, there was a cross-sector advisory team that came together, and Justina was on the team, as well as Carrie, who's on the phone, and Stacy Pong from DOH, and Keiko Nita from DOH, and Chris Jackson, who I think is also on the phone, and Joanne Farnsworth from API. And then a little bit of confusion, that's the other Karen. So Karen Finello from West Ed helped them to kind of put together the plan initially and really kind of build that out. So this is still Justina through Joanne are still the folks who are involved as the advisory group for implementing the plan. Next slide, please. This is not a reading test. I know it looks like one, so apologies. So the plan is organized so that there's 4 major components. The first is systems and policy, and I'll just kind of go through the goals for each of these 4 areas. So the first, again, systems and policy, to have state policies and services in place with sustainable funding streams that support infant early childhood behavioral health across the state. The second major component is marketing, outreach, and community education. So creating mechanisms to improve understanding in families and communities, and as among policymakers, of the importance of infant early childhood behavioral health to overall long-term health. The third area is workforce development, with a goal of increasing the quality and capacity of the workforce in infant early childhood mental health to address social, emotional, and mental health needs of young children and their families. And then area 4 is programs and services. So really creating pathways for access to a full range of infant early childhood mental health programs and services, and ranging from promotion, prevention, through treatment. So there's specific strategies in each of those 4 component areas. And then in this plan for each strategy, this is like a strategy 4.1, tells you what the rationale is for including that. And then there is a follow-up page that has short-term objectives, intermediate-term objectives, and long-term objectives. So that's built out over like a 4-year timeframe. So the short-term are through next summer, intermediate through the next year, and then long-term 2025. So feel free to dig into some of those and look for places where you might be interested in reaching out and talking about how we could do some work together. Next slide, please. So again, also it does not appear to be a reading test, but it's not. So this is, we use a lot of terms and we're not sure that everybody's on the same page with what those are. And so we just wanted to share these with you and maybe look through them in more detail later. And just mental health first being, you know, emotional, psychological, and social well-being, and behavioral health kind of being a broader concept to include mental health, but also resilience, well-being. And so kind of is more holistic view of one's health. And then infant early childhood mental health, the developing capacity of the child from birth through age 5. And so, and there's a lot more detail there. It includes social emotional development. So it's an IECBH plan because it's a little bit bigger than mental health, but the folks who are providing services and the services that are actually being provided are, we refer to as infant early childhood mental health. So I hope that is not too confusing. And then there's infant early childhood mental health consultation, which is the last item here. It's just where a mental health consultant works with adults who work with kids and their families in different settings. And so this is someone who is specially trained to provide these consultation services. So lots of other folks could potentially provide infant early childhood mental health services, but the consultation would be provided by those with very specific training. Okay, very good. Next slide, please. So first steps that were last year, it was, I guess it wasn't the first year of COVID, but it's the first full year of COVID and difficulty financially, I know here, and but still a real desire to make forward movement. So major activity was really trying to maximize existing resources and implement some of the strategies and looking for new funding sources. So there was a financing sustainability work group convened, and luckily I was brought in to work with that group, and we developed a paper really looking at how we could find funding for these services. So could we look at Medicaid? Could we look at other sources of funding? What are other states doing? So we were able to put together a paper that is available also on it's on HCF and the AIM High website and others that sort of lays out some next steps. And we're actually meeting tomorrow to talk some more about this. So looking for ways that other states that allow young kids to get services without having a diagnosis, for example. Great, and next slide, please. And then also looking to build out the workforce and to help get some additional expertise in this area. So 69 additional people were trained in infant early childhood mental health competencies and more in trauma-informed care, which is a priority across the plan. And then another 15 Promising Minds fellows currently being trained and really to develop this infant mental health expertise. And then there's federal funding for a behavioral health phone consultation line. So this is for pediatricians and other primary care providers to really get help when they're seeing young kids and families. Next slide, please. And a few other accomplishments, DOH, Family Health Services Division agreed to be the temporary home for IUCBH in Hawaii and working on a permanent home. Lots of materials disseminated, some curriculum and training modules on infant early child behavioral health and pediatrics and primary care were developed and delivered. And then there were two, help me out with the pronunciation. Just
the Kahavai summits that were for the field.
Yeah, thank you. Next slide, please. So kind of turning to where we are now this year, as part of the plan being in existence and Hawaii's commitment to, the mental health, behavioral health of the youngsters and their families, Hawaii was selected by 0 to 3, which is a nonprofit organization, and Georgetown University to receive 2 years of technical assistance related to infant early childhood mental health consultation. So we have been meeting January, I don't know exactly when.
Start of the year.
Yes. So there's a consultant at 0 to 3 who meets with our team every 2 weeks to talk about different areas of focus and how we might move forward in this space. We have lots of folks from different agencies and private sector organizations who are part of that. We're really interested in being early adopters for this IE-CMH consultation model. Next slide, please. So these are the folks. You could say raise your hand if you're on the list.
These are on the call.
Yes, lots of folks who are familiar, I'm sure, to you all. Next slide, please. So with the TA, we really want to build out this IE-CMH consultation model. So there's 3 organization entities that are focusing on this state agencies / areas. So one is early intervention at DOH, and the other is home visiting at DOH, and then the third is guided childcare. So that's from DHS and Head Start, so Ben and Tanya and Dana and Chris and other folks. So those guys have all been coming together to have these meetings just like, how can we move forward? What do we want to do to really get this IECMH consultation model deployed out into these areas? Next slide, please. And then there's some other focus areas for the upcoming year, a big focus on workforce. So really, as I said, expanding that workforce for those who can provide the consultation services, and then to grow the IECMH workforce more generally through partnerships and integration between public and private sector organizations. So this can be, again, not those really specialized folks providing the consultation, but folks at home visiting or who are going out and doing working with families already. And then the last is the continuing this work with the financing sustainability that was begun last year, and what can we do for Medicaid and other funding streams to be used for providing these services. So again, talking with other states, we had a nice conversation with folks in Michigan about what they're able to do there, and we're reaching out to some others as well. And then really trying to get a better understanding of what the Medicaid requirements are here, the MedQuest requirements, as it relates to the provision of these services and the practitioners who provide them. So that's kind of a whirlwind tour, the plan of what we've been up to, but we have some time for questions, I think. I'm so happy to answer. And next slide, if it has my
Let me check
contact
in with
info.
Bob too. Do we have time for a couple
Yeah,
questions?
we're fine
Okay.
because we're not having the executive session. We
Okay.
have some time.
Thank you.
I have a question. You know, the state is trying to develop the early childhood workforce itself, right? So, you know, when they are developing that, if this component is in the curriculum or whatever, in the course of being the teacher, I think that would be helpful. You know, I think we are focusing somebody who is already a teacher is going to get additional skills. But those people who are growing now, if that is also incorporated, I think it's not, they don't have to do it again. I mean, they can do it again, but you know, it's already in the skills. And then I'm sure the educators are taught classroom management, but I think this mental health thing is more than the classroom management. So I'm wondering if you kind of thought about that.
Great question. The SIN note about repeating the question. Bob?
I'm sorry.
Oh, Carrie had asked to
Carrie.
repeat the question. Maybe it's a little quiet.
Sorry.
Oh, that's okay.
Yeah.
Or I can answer and kind of repeat it. You want me to try?
Yeah, maybe,
Okay.
maybe we need to take off our masks when we're talking.
I know. On and off.
Mari, can you share your question again? Because I didn't hear it clearly either.
Okay.
So
I'm
Carrie, I
taking it
will
off.
repeat them when I hear it.
Hospital doesn't like me to take it off. My question is because we, you know, this group was discussed sometime about the workforce development. So I'm wondering when they're developing the workforce, this can be also a component to grow those new coming teachers. Because right now we are focusing on the people who are already teachers or caregivers to get extra skills or more knowledgeable. But can we start off and then which is different from just the classroom management? It's much broader when related to child development or how the parents to interact. So I think that is actually a good curriculum to learn too. But I'm wondering if you guys can discuss those things.
Right, in case you didn't hear the question again, just to be certain, it has to do with the workforce efforts that are happening. Are there efforts to support teachers in the classrooms to actually acquire some of the skills and talents needed to be able to be responsive in a way that's other than classroom management through this effort? Is that a fair?
Yeah, there's a short term. What I understood was she's asking about the short term of getting current
Mhm.
teachers, home visitors, and others trained, but then also up the pipeline. So as
Right.
teachers are completing their degree or others in our early childhood field are getting their certifications, could this actually be part of the curriculum? That is the ideal and something that we'd be working towards. I think we're kind of in the short-term strategy of work with our current workforce, those who are interested, and build up their skill base so they can be our early spotters and can help do some of the referrals, can do some of the immediate work with the child and their family members. But there has been some early conversations with Chaminade University. It was like right before the pandemic and there was interest, and anyway, that all kind of had to get put on the back burner. And then also with Terry Locke and the work that she's doing through the ECEQ, the Early Educator and Equity Project, there's just been some early conversations and interest in that, but nothing that, because that also requires, looking at the curriculum within higher ed, which takes a little bit of a process. So great point, and we will keep working on it. We got the
Yeah,
short-term bucket and then
Thank
the
you.
long-term bucket.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Are there other questions? I had one question. I wondered, Jordana, Justine, I do that all the time. Are there any plans for any new legislation that will be required in the near term?
Great question. I can speak, but other folks from the advisory group can chime in too. We've looked at some of the policy options and things that other states have done to advance infant early childhood mental health. And so we kind of have that as a base document, but we weren't certain, like kind of given the climate around policy right now and funding right now, whether or not that we would actually be ready to have a legislative ask this session. So we're kind of feeling like there might not be, but that can change. We all know sometimes that changes, so we'll see. But currently not something that we're going to request this session.
All right, thank you.
Bob, with that, I would also add that early childhood mental health is a priority of Commit to Keiki and working with the next governor to prioritize young children's mental health. And so I think there's opportunities there for us to gain some champions with the next governor.
Thank you, Carrie. Anyone else have a comment or question to offer before we let Karen get off the hot seat? I'm not seeing anything in the chat, Jordana? No. Karen, thank you so much for
Thank you.
sharing. I'm glad our meeting coincided with your visit. And Justina, thank you. And Joanne for arranging for this to happen today. We're delighted to have you.
Thank you very much.
All right. The next item on the agenda is the Executive Office on Early Learning Updates. And Yuka, I'll turn it over to you.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody, and nice to see more people in person now. So we're going to go through some updates. So next, and I'll have different members of our team share. So Jordana first. Sorry, she's doing two things.
So just a quick update that departments are now working with Governor's office on any legislative proposals, and in the next month or two, we'll be working with the governor to share our budget requests. So we will update the board as that happens, and once decisions are made, we'll notify the board as well.
And Colleen is not present, but we wanted to share that ELB Public Pre-Kindergarten is going to start having their professional community days for administrators, teachers, and partners starting on September 9th. And then the following ones will be on, you can see October, February, and April. And so, well, this will be my first time participating. And so maybe I can share out what happens at this first September one at our next board meeting. Next. I believe Alohi might be on. Is Alohi on?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay.
I could give, so I want to give an update about the preschool development grant. Notice of opportunity has not been announced yet by the Department of Health and Human Services. It was forecasted to be announced on September 4th. So I think at this point, it could be announced at any time, and we'll update the board and our constituents when the announcement is made. I also have another announcement about this year's PDGB 5 annual convening for all 50 states. So this year will be held virtually. It was supposed to be held in person, but they decided to change plans and to hold it virtually due to the renewal grant process and anticipation of states being busy. So this year will be held December 6th to the 8th, and there'll be upcoming information about what will be presented. They are asking for states to, if we do have any ideas on items that we want to present. So if there are any pressing items that we think that could be shared at this annual convening, please contact me or someone from our office, and we can see how we can coordinate that. We also continue with some ongoing work with the system visualization workshop. We're heading into our 4th workshop, and we've completed 3 so far. We do still have ongoing conversations and looking at how can we sustain this work and continue the conversations and learn from what we have from the workshops. So that is my updates if there's no other questions, or if there's any questions. Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you, Lily. And Chris?
Hello, everyone. So just very briefly as well, on August 31st, the Head Start and Early Head Start directors participated in a focus group on Act 46. It's been, these focus groups have been convened by EOL and DHS to provide information more around the Act, but also to solicit feedback about implications that the Act might have. And so Head Start and Early Head Start directors were able to share some of the excitement that they had around this opportunity to increase access for more kiddos, 3s and 4s, but also to share some of the concerns and potential implications in terms of programming and prioritization, and made some recommendations to the team as to how they might be able to help address some of those concerns that the directors shared. So that was a very, I thought, very informative conversation, and we hope to learn more about strategies going forward. Another announcement was that, and I shared this at the last meeting, Ben, I can't remember if this is like the 8th annual, but anyway, the regional office, Region 9 Office of Head Start has been partnering with the Head Start Association of Hawaii for a number of years now to have this family engagement and cultural responsive conference held in Hawaii, because of course that's how you get a lot of people to participate in these events, is to say, let's do it in Hawaii. And so we have been able to do this over a number of years. This year it is in Kailua Kona. And the focus is always on trying to celebrate the different cultures, traditions, and practices that are reflected in the modern family, and to elevate family engagement in all of programming, because as part of the Head Start model, family engagement is a critical cornerstone to our work, and we want to be able to elevate that and to encourage more programs to do authentic family engagement in their work with families. So this year's theme is called Thriving Together with You. We have 3 keynote sessions and a number of concurrent sessions. Because it is happening in Kailua Kona, because Ben, Parents and Children Together, Head Start, Early Head Start, offers services on the Big Island. One of Ben's staff, April, has been very involved in helping to gather local entertainment to enhance the offerings in the conference. And so she has been able to arrange for either Oli or entertainment, or, hula of some sort, of music of some sort, for the different reception events that we'll be having, as well as every morning there'll be some kind of a health activity. So there's been a lot of involvement with the Head Start and Early Head Start folks to help make this happen in Kailua Kona. We did reach out. I worked with Angela Thomas on the Big Island to see if we could get Mayor Roth to provide some welcoming remarks on the first day, and we're still waiting to hear whether he is available and able to do that. So that's kind of exciting and fun. And the last thing is that during the same week, the Head Start of Hawaii Board of Directors will be conducting their annual retreat in person in Kona. So some fun things to look forward to next month. Mahalo.
Thank you, Chris. And for the 46 engagement. I know that Jardine is going to be ready. Okay, I think I shared a little bit of context on this at the last meeting, but the Act 46 stakeholder engagements were done with EOEL, so Alohi, Kelly, and myself, and in collaboration with DHS. So Tanya and Rico with DHS had co-facilitated and presented with us. The first phase of these engagements were really to reach out to childcare providers, including family childcare homes, to go over Act 46, particularly the pieces that will have a direct impact on them, and then to solicit their feedback. So the meeting that Chris mentioned earlier was one of those stakeholder engagements that we have. We did complete this first phase, so we'll be working with DHS to sort of assess and analyze the feedback. And we do have plans to present to the board next month. We'll talk with Bob about that when we plan the agenda. But we will like to present some information about providers, the feedback that we received, and hopefully some possible next steps for consideration. Any questions? Great, thank you so much. And so originally when I moved into this role, there are some pieces which we're going to be moving through. So just learning about and with each other, and then beginning to formulate what are some possibilities of what we can do, and then also to activate. So what are we going to do now? And as anybody who's involved in any kind of work, you realize that things are fluid, and you are actually constantly moving through each of these different phases as you start to implement some work. And so this is at the space at where our office is right now. And so continuing to learn, starting to really think about what are some possibilities, where are the needs, and then what are some things that we can do about them in our realm of control, and also in partnership with partners, and then what are some markers of success. So those are some conversations that we're having right now in our office. So next, going along with continuing to learn, I just wanted to thank Ka'iulani for inviting me over to Hilo. I was able to visit Punanaleo o Hilo, and which also has a hi'ipepe, like a infant toddler care center, Kekula o Navahio Kalaniopuu, and also Kahakaulo Ke'evikolani Center. And it's basically a fascinating shared pathway of Hawaiian language revitalization and Hawaiian medium education that runs from the youngest all the way through their university system. So thank you for inviting me to share more about your program. Next. I wanted to share a couple of things that we have had opportunity. So first of all, that right side is not necessarily meant to be read, but more of just a visualization. And so we got connected to the Association for Learning Environment. So there's actually a Hawaii chapter. And so we had gotten connected with them through conversation with the School Facilities Authority. And then we learned that there's a Hawaii chapter. So they invited us to come out and talk to them. And what's on that right side is actually, they're called like project pathways. And there's only a few of them here, but there's actually 9. We learned that there are like 9 EOEL preschools that back in 2020 that had gone through $6 million of renovation space. And so we met a lady from the Department of Education that was a part of those, a lot of those pathways. And so together with Lane, we were able to pull some of them out to try to see like how much was spent in each space. And then now we're kind of curious as to like, what does it look like? What did they do to these spaces? So that maybe it can give us some ideas, moving forward. Okay, next. Additionally, Chair Peters, Georgina, and I were invited to have a conversation with the Board of Education's Legislative Committee on August 22nd. And the board was very interested in ELB and EOEL's short and long-term education policy priorities and concerns, because they're trying to see spaces in which we might intersect. And so if you do not know, the Board of Education is creating their strategic plan, and this survey is open to the public. And they have made it known that it will include some sort of pre-K component. And so if you'd like to offer feedback and provide some insight, feel free to do so. It is a multi-year strategic plan. And while it's being conducted by the board, it is a plan for all of Hawaii. And so please feel free to jump onto the survey and provide some input from our perspective. Okay, thank you. Next. I also had an opportunity to attend, I was invited by the Hunt Institute for their Early Childhood Leadership Summit. And you can see on the left side, individuals who attended, and from our early learning board, it was Dana Luca. And this Hunt Institute was phenomenal. It was giant. It was over 400 individuals from, they had all 50 states represented and some other territories. And if you look on the right side, those are some of the key sessions which they spoke about. It was jam-packed. It was so much information in a very short amount of time. And we're, moving from room to room and listening to session. And I'm still digesting a lot of it, but the quality and the caliber of the individuals who they brought before us and the people who were actually in the room and the capacity that they have for change was pretty phenomenal. And there's a lot of really neat things that are happening. And it was very exciting to hear how different areas are navigating the challenges which exist in all spaces. And so I think I never knew about the Hunt Institute, so I think it's definitely an entity that I'm going to follow because I was very impressed by the quality of what they were able to put before us. Thank you. Next. I wanted to give some updates on positions. So we're still in process for the communications specialist position and the educational specialist position for EOEL pre-K. At the end of this month, we have scheduled interviews for the business manager and administrative services assistant, which will be a contract specialist. And we are going to repost the workforce specialist position on September 15th. I wanted to give an update on school facilities as well. So School Facilities Authority, EOEL, the charter schools, and the Department of Education are establishing our roles and responsibilities in relationship to each other and how we're going to work together to accomplish these things which can support our children and the greater community. So rather than assuming whose responsibility is what, we are creating it together and getting it down so that there will be some agreements between all of us so that we can, that there's no misunderstanding and then that we can facilitate the work a lot easier. Next. I want to share kind of cool picture on the left side. So yesterday our office had a team meeting, a whole office team meeting. And if you're not aware, next week, the 15th, it's International Dot Day. And so it really celebrates creativity, courage, and collaboration. So we had an activity about how will you leave your mark and what will your mark be. And so that was a really great time for our whole office to come together. But as I had mentioned earlier as well, our systems building team is working really to talk about what is success going to look like and what are those markers going to be. And when we come to a place where we can share that with the board, we will bring it before you for feedback and input. Next. So this is where we need to take the action on that next piece about the ceiling. Is it okay if I move into this part? Okay. So if you from our last meeting, we identified our strategic priorities that were aligned with our biennium request. And so they're here. After our last meeting, we had like another group huddle and we realized that we have to ask, I guess, how do you say, present one more possibility for the board to consider or approve. Jordina next. And so the request that we're asking for is to have an appropriation ceiling of $3 million for the early learning special fund that can be used for the special, the early learning system. So Act 46 session 2020, it amended our early learning trust fund to become a special fund. And the reason why we are requesting a ceiling, and it's not an appropriation request, it's just a ceiling request at this time, because there might be possibilities for us to leverage funds through the early learning special fund in support of the system. And it will permit us to be able to expend funds that we are able to add to the special fund for the whole purpose of the system. And so this request that we need to take action on is if the board is okay with EOEL requesting an appropriation ceiling of $3 million for our early learning special fund.
So you would like action from the board?
Yes, please.
Okay. I'll move that we approve the biennium request for a special fund ceiling of $3 million for the early learning special fund. Is there a second?
I second the motion.
Justina seconded the motion. Is there any discussion? People understand, Justina, go ahead, sorry.
I know it's like you're probably paying attention to the screen and in line, but I was wondering if I remember right, was the previous ceiling $1 million that EOEL had requested for the special fund? I'm just trying to gauge it into what was previously requested. And then I just wanted to understand, I think the uses of that special fund right now are things like could be matching dollars for the stipends. I mean, but there's other opportunities that you're imagining might hit that up to the 3 million. Yeah, anyway, just a little more background.
So we actually have no dollars in the ceiling, which is why we want to request an appropriation ceiling. So last session, we requested $100,000 for the early childhood educator special fund, which was established in Act 210 in 2021. But that special fund is actually going to be abolished in 23. And that was intended only for the recoupment of stipend funds if people didn't complete the requirements of that. So the early learning special fund, we actually don't have an appropriation ceiling. So if any funds are dropped into there, then technically we can't actually spend it. So we do need the ceiling request in order to be able to expend funds. But the early learning special fund, the language around it is really for the early learning system. So as long as anything can be used for that purpose, so everything you threw out essentially could be a possibility on the ways we could leverage funds that are dropped into that special fund.
Yeah, and like, for example, if we were to be awarded the PDG 5 funds, that could go into this fund or something, maybe.
Well, if federal funds come down, typically they just stay within like our
your
regular prog
okay.
ID. But like if someone wanted to donate money to supplement some of the work, it could go into the special fund.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you for clarifying.
And then Carrie had her hand raised as well.
Okay, Carrie?
Yeah, I just have a quick question. I'm wondering why we wouldn't ask even for a small appropriation. So ask for the ceiling and then ask for an appropriation at the same time.
Did you get the question? Okay.
Bob, I might be able to answer that question.
Yes, please.
So special funds are not any funds appropriated by the state, because that would actually be an appropriation, and general funds cannot be deposited into any special funds. So the special fund is really for income, donations, or reimbursements for services or other things that are not general funds. Does that, hopefully that helps.
That does. It then makes me think about the question around EOEL fund or an actual public appropriation that we could use to match. So I'm wondering what could EOEL be asking for that could allow us to really leverage government and non-government dollars together?
So if there was this is hypothetical, if there was a philanthropic donation and it required some type of general funds match, it is a possibility that the funds appropriated to the EOEL for the functions of their work could be used as that match. It all depends on the language of what are the match requirements.
Yeah, so one example is, so if Gov approves, EOBL will be requesting general funds for the stipend program, for example, which ELB approved at the last meeting. So if a philanthropic partner wanted to donate to supplement that, it could go into the early learning special fund. So we wouldn't request general funds to go to the special fund. That would just be a request we make to go to EOBL, but it can be supplemented through donations or grants or like fees, as Matt mentioned, that can then go to the special fund that we can use to help support or leverage or supplement other services.
Are there any other questions around the special? No, don't go away because there's a question for you. Not related to this, but one that I think you can answer. Are there any other questions with regard to the special fund? Or may we go ahead and move the question? All right, then we will take the vote. We are voting on approving the ELB's biennial request for a special fund ceiling in the amount of $3 million for the special fund that currently exists. And Justina,
Aye.
Erin,
Aye.
Yeleni,
Aye.
is Megan shown? No? Ben,
Aye.
May,
Aye.
I vote aye. Why, Ali,
Aye.
Mari,
Aye.
Carrie,
Aye.
Melody.
Aye.
So the motion is passed, and you have the approval of the board to move forward with that request. We had one question that relates to the Act 46 stakeholders. And the question for everyone to hear is about stakeholder engagement for Act 46. Is there more information on who is included or who may be included moving into the next phase?
Yes, so we met this morning and we will definitely be reaching out next to Hawaiian Medium programs and then FCILs. Eventually, we do want to reach out to parents and families, but if there are other entities or programs, please let us know. I think everyone has my email, but I can put it in the chat box if you want to send me any suggestions. But those, so Hawaiian Medium and FCILs will be the immediate next group of folks that we'll be reaching out to. So Ku'iolani, we'll be reaching out to you specifically.
Thank you. Are there, Yuko, did you have anything else to add?
No, that was the end of it. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you all to the staff and Yuko for that information. Are there any other questions lingering out there or comments that people want to make? Justine.
I did have one question about the memorandum of agreement that you guys are developing between the SFA, EOEL, and DOE and HPSC. Could you guys have a sense of like what you're aiming for in terms of timeline to get the MOA in place?
I think we'd like it as soon as possible. I think we're trying to finalize like each of our cases and how we interact. So the parts that I included from EOEL are essentially what I had shared before, you know, like we should be consulted in terms of like different kinds of spaces, like the current schools that are, in terms of expansion, like who are the schools that are interested in expanding? What are the current spaces that exist that might need some type of space renovation in order to have the longevity of the space remaining open for students? Are there any campuses where there's this exchange of rooms because the enrollment grows or what have you, where some programs are taken off campuses or, you know, things like that. So that's kind of one of the, like what I have been offering. And then just trying to make sure that whether it's through charter or DOE or SFA, that it's all acceptable by everybody and we agree to interact in this way. And so I think that there's still some input from like some of the entities in terms of making sure that this is exactly how we want it to be, and then we can move forward from there. But we're trying to get it done as soon as possible. I think right now, I think it's like between the groups, like not to be shared out with other people because we're still having conversations, but as soon as it's finalized, I can share it.
Anyone else have any comments or questions for Yuko? All right, hearing none, thank you all for an informative report. The next item we have on the agenda relates to the Provider Appreciation Month. And I'm hoping that most of you had a chance to see Carol Ware's article in this Advertiser this weekend. which really was very supportive of this effort. And Deb Zeisen from HCAN has agreed to share with us a heck of an update. And then if board members have ways in which they're engaged in appreciation for providers, we'd love to hear what some of those thoughts are. So Deb, I'm going to ask you if you would chime in at this point, please.
Great. Thank you so much, Bob. And I think Jordana has my slides. So happy Child Care Provider Appreciation Month, everybody. It is the entire month of September. So happy to be here. And Jordana, next slide. It's great. So a little bit of background. Some of you will recall that last legislative session, the Hawaii Early Childhood Advocacy Alliance, which we sometimes call HECIA, worked with lawmakers both in the State House and the Senate, and we passed a concurrent resolution to recognize September 2022 as Child Care Provider Appreciation Month. This was intentional. We meant it to be a separate but complementary event from the May National Day that happens. In part, we felt it needed to be a month. We also really wanted to have some additional time to recognize the inequities and injustices that childcare providers and the workforce face day in and day out. And we wanted it to be a day of action and commitments to future things. So actually having it in the fall is strategically better for us in this state to kind of help lead into the next legislative session, as opposed to in May when we just wrapped things up. So that was the reason for this. And next slide. So basic time frame, in April, we passed the resolution in both chambers. We started some internal planning. The HECIA group has been meeting since early in the summer, putting some plans together. We started months ago pitching some media like Hawaii Business Magazine, which I'll tell you about in a minute. So it was a whole coalition, and then there's been a really great kind of work group that's been working on all of the details. And here we are. And next slide, Jordana. Okay, so far, I do want to just give some acknowledgement and appreciation. I personally have actually not been super involved. I just get to make the presentation today. So a few folks though who have been doing the lion's share of the work. Carol Weir and her team at Patch has been amazing with media and setting up visits and the op-ed, as Bob mentioned. Vivian Eto has been coordinating with the various counties. Ted Burke has really stepped up and made sure that, I think Ted, you can see his picture on there, to get front and center with the mayor, Terry Locke, and Justina Acevedo Cross, I think also from their respective pieces. And then Keopu on my team has been coordinating pieces for us. So thank you to all those folks. This has been a group effort. So I just want to make sure that this is not a Deb thing. It's been a lot of people working for several months now. So things that are in motion, there are social media graphics for partners to use and share. There's some kind of screenshots of them there on the left. If you have not been sent them through one of the various networks, let us know. I know they've gone out to like the Child Care Business Coalition, through Patch, some of those other groups. But we would love if you have social media, kind of help throughout this month to boost those pieces up. We did make sure it's very neutrally branded. It's not branded as HECIA, it's not branded as HCAN. I believe you could put your own logo on as well, but it really just says Child Care Provider Appreciation Month, so that government could use it, nonprofits could use it, anyone really can use the materials and try to have them in as many channels as possible. Thus far, we've had 2 proclamations by mayors. They're pictured here. Honolulu and Kauai were both last week. So again, mahalo to Ted for stepping up and coordinating with City and County of Honolulu, and to Alice and Alana at CPAA. I'm going to blank on what their acronyms, the Kauai folks. So to Alice and Alana for coordinating the Kauai County proclamation. KITV did cover the City and County of Honolulu. And Bob mentioned we have already had this week an op-ed from Carol Weir at Patch. So that's kind of already, we're only at the 8th. That's what we're at so far. Next slide. So what is still to come? A number of things are still in the works for the rest of the month. So DHS Director's Office is planning an acknowledgement. We have another op-ed that is likely to be running next week in Civil Beat, but and a few others that are kind of still percolating, let's say, but some other op-eds that folks in the group have been working to place. Rep Kahele is planning to do a visit to a childcare provider. We'll try to get some media on that as well. We are still working with Governor's office. Governor has acknowledged it and sort of done the proclamation, but was doing a lot of travel and things, I believe, this month. So we are hoping to do a, oh, thank you, Alana. Yes, Kauai Planning and Action Alliance. I just always call them KPAA. So we are hoping to do an in-person gubernatorial proclamation as well. It will likely not be till the end of the month because he was away. So there was some just complications, but he's done a lot, you know, behind the scenes, has done the official proclamation, but more of a public ceremony as well. The team has been working really hard. We will be having a Hawaii Business Magazine feature. It's the October edition, but I believe it actually will officially come out like September 28th and 29th. And we are continuing social media and media pitching. So next slide. And what you can do, join the social media campaign if you're not already. We also have a kudo board that you can populate. I know some of you have done it already. You can sort of share the love with families and community members to share their appreciations. We have some of the images. We do have some businesses that are planning to do mahalos as well on We Love Childcare Providers. And then I think tangible things, if you're in that type of position and can think of other tangible things that we can do, really, that it's not just words, but I think that's been the commitment of Heck Yeah, is we want it to be concrete as much as possible, not just saying thank you, but it kind of goes hand in hand with the coalition's push on things like worthy wages. That we mean it, we need to appreciate people, and that we can't just say thank you and not back it up with actual actions to do. Let's see. I think that is the bulk of what I wanted to cover. If you are not involved at the Heck Yeah Coalition and you would like to be, that is the table where we come together and talk generally about legislative priorities specifically for childcare and pre-K issues. We are discussing also potentially some county pieces as well for this coming year. So you're welcome to get involved. Let me know if you're not on that list, or we do have some people make the meetings and other people just get the emails, and that's perfectly fine as well. And I think that's it. My contact, I think, is on the final slide. And if there's any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Carrie, did you want to make your suggestion that you have in the chat?
It was more of a question, Deb, and maybe Vivian already has all this, so apologies. But we have a broader reach with our listserv. And so if you have boilerplate language for actual email, we're happy to share it that way as well.
Okay, I think Vivian has, but I'll confirm with Vivian. Awesome, thank you.
Anyone else have questions or suggestions for Deb? Also would be a good time for anyone who has anything to share in addition to the breadth of what Deb has shared that Heck Yeah has already planned. Specific things that groups are doing fit into a different category.
Oh, sure. Like one thing that we're working on, so it's not fully confirmed, but having Hawaii Community Foundation staff talk about like a child care provider that's meant a lot to them, and we'll do some social media posts around that. We love the child care provider appreciation month graphics. They make it so easy to like reshare and everything. But then just on a personal note, I was Carrie had also shared this, I think that, you know, really being a working mom, you have to rely so much on childcare to be able to go back to work. So I know I will be thanking and loving up on all my childcare providers who are taking care of my kids right now.
Thank you, Justina. Anyone else have anything you wish to add? If not, thank you, Doug, for making the time to share with us today and to give us options for the ways in which we can participate if we choose to. Hopefully, the providers this month, they certainly are plenty of opportunities for their appreciation, and I hope it's as broad-based as it possibly can. Some of us are a little bit too old to be able to appreciate our childcare providers, I'm afraid. I don't think preschool had been invented yet, quite frankly, at that point. But I'll think nicely of those early people who helped to raise me in some fashion. So thank you all. All right, we'll move to the subcommittee reports next. And I had listed the strategic implementation subcommittee for an update at this meeting. They've asked to postpone to the next meeting, and so we will not be having an update from them at this particular time. The next item on the agenda has to do with the systems mapping and relationship building subcommittee. Can you, Jordana, can you raise that? Yeah. I hope people can see that. Is the screen sharing large enough for people? Can you make it a little bigger? Oh, thank you. That's great. All right, what you see before you is the charter that was designed for the systems mapping and relationship building subcommittee. It is an ad hoc committee. Remember, we only have two standing committees. That's the governance and the finance. So this is an ad hoc committee that grew out of the initial planning in 2018, 2019, after we became a governing board, and we were looking at areas that we wish the board to focus on in terms of needs for the community. And one of the stronger needs that was felt at that point was a sense of what did the system look like, what are the pieces, and the mapping strategies that were identified here were defined for that particular purpose when the subcommittee was put together. The state plan was added, although it no longer really belongs in as part of this chart, this subcommittee's portfolio, because it has been assumed by the strategic implementation plans. But the two other bullets there do relate, and you can see the overall effort was to create some greater clarity around the early learning system. Well, given our recent conversations and the information that we have received from our inquiry of the Attorney General's office, it seemed appropriate for us today to return to where this subcommittee stands, what its future should be. Does it still retain the purpose that was identified initially? And part of this is because the mapping is now going to occur outside of the early learning board, and the subcommittee will not be engaged in the mapping efforts. It will really be a separate effort outside it. And just to kind of remind people about what these mapping efforts are going to be, I've asked Carrie if she would be willing to share a bit to remind everyone about the mapping efforts that are going to be happening outside of the early learning board structure. Carrie, would you please share that?
Sure. Thanks, Bob. And I just want to thank the committee members. It's been a really engaging year and a half of partnership between Department of Human Services, Patch, Center on the Family, AUW 211, ECAS, partners. So it's been great. And we got to a point where We have 4 different mapping efforts that we've made sure we've looked at how to continue. And then more importantly, to make sure how they link on the back end, and making sure that we're designing these so that they are very easy to use for families and users, and very easy to use for providers who are providing program information to the different entities. And so those 4 efforts will continue to move forward. The DHS Consumer Ed website, Patch's childcare mapping, Center on the Families mapping, and then Keiki Central's mapping. So that work's going to continue, and we're just going to continue to communicate and make sure that it's all linked together. And, you know, as needed, I think any of us and all of us are willing to provide updates to the Early Learning Board on progress if desired. Yeah, that's the update, unless anybody on the committee has additional comments.
Anyone have any questions for Carrie about the 4 mapping initiatives themselves?
One exciting thing that came out through this was an opportunity for Patch to add a module to their current data system that will provide live data regarding seats and availability. And so that will also help, particularly those maps that are only focused on the childcare component of the mapping. I will say there's still the one disconnect that we see, and I think it's fine because I think we have figured out how to connect on the back end, is Hawaii will not have a visual map that has all of the programs and services that support young children by community, because Patch really wanted to make sure that they were the source to provide the mapping for the childcare to the childcare providers and for childcare. And so anything that you see through Keiki Central, for example, if a family or a provider searches for childcare for preschool, the goal is to have those searches go to Patch. And so they'll house those maps, they will house, but they'll be connected on the back end, if that makes sense. It doesn't preclude, you know, programs listing themselves individually through the AUW 211 database, but we are trying to keep childcare and preschool coordinated through Patch.
Thank you, Carrie, and I want to thank you for serving as the primary convener of this subcommittee, and also thank the committee members who have worked, both those who are on the board and those off-board members in this effort, because it really did achieve the goal of relationship building and collaborative efforts that we were seeking in the beginning. Given that's the situation, and the fact that we have a decision moving forward, I think the question is this committee still viable? And if it is, what is its focus going to be? And therefore, I've suggested a motion in the agenda, which is to sunset the systems mapping and relationship building subcommittee, since the work is going to be outside the Early Learning Board. I'm putting that out there as a motion, and would like to have a second so that we can open it up for any discussion from the group.
Bob, if I can just add those other 2 bullets that this ad hoc committee was tasked to do, because the strategic implementation subcommittee was stood up, we feel that those 2 bullets could be taken up by the strategic implementation subcommittee. Then I don't want to add that to your team's plate, but it potentially might make more sense.
I think we'll have to bring that back around through the governance committee if we do take a look at it, to see whether or not it's needed. And the state plan is already part of the strategic implementation. I'm not as concerned about that. The second bullet, if we sent that to subcommittee, I think it'd be a matter for the governance committee to take a look at where does this fit or does it fit, or do we need something else? All right. So I'm making the motion to sunset the systems mapping committee, subcommittee as it currently exists. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, May. May has seconded. All right, it's open the floor for discussion. See what people's thoughts are. Justina, you look as if you have a thought.
Trying to let other people talk first. I mean, I think it has achieved what it, what it set out to achieve in the beginning. Also taking that I didn't come on the board until after those committees were set. I'm glad to hear the work will continue outside of ELB because I still think there's room for systems mapping and better coordination. But the recommendation to sunset the committee seems to make some sense at this time.
And I think we can make a provision, even if we do sunset it, that we continue to hear reports. We can ask for reports back on a regular basis about the status. And it may be that as we see what these maps look like, we may come around to say there's need for something else. I'm thinking of the subcommittee as it now exists and what its original purpose was, given the work that's been going elsewhere. Is there anyone who objects to? This is really, I put this motion in here to generate conversation today. So if the board feels it's not ready to make a decision, that's fine. But if it is, then let's do it and move on. I don't hear any comments, and I will take a vote and see. The motion has been made and seconded to sunset the systems mapping subcommittee as it currently exists. We don't have the codicil and remain intact with them, but we'll make that a separate comment in touch with them. So, Justina.
Aye.
Erin.
Aye.
Ilani.
Aye.
Ben.
Aye.
May.
Aye.
I vote aye. Aye, Ellen.
Aye.
Thank you. Mari.
Aye.
Carrie.
Aye.
Melody.
Aye.
And Carrie, I'm assuming that we can make an arrangement of some kind with the mapping subgroups to continue reporting back to us about what they learn, the progress of the maps, and share the maps with us. Is that correct?
I would imagine so. Yep.
All right. I will, on behalf of the board, reach out to the 4 groups and indicate that we would like to keep touch and that we want to be not only updated on the maps, but the maps shared with us when they are ready. And then we can decide if we need to pursue the creation of another ad hoc committee. I do think this is the way ad hoc committees are intended to function, that they have a limited time frame and life, and then we move on to put efforts into other areas. And Lord knows we have enough other things to work on. We haven't run out of anything yet that I'm aware of. Okay, thank you, everyone. And the next 2 items can grow out of the leadership updates at this point. And I wanted us to spend some time specifically talking about the requests we have through the legislature to work on an examination of our board and its composition. I sent everyone a copy of the Senate concurrent resolution because I did not have a copy of the final. Thank you. And I don't have it now, so you may be sharing it with me. hopefully you've had a chance to look at it because it clarifies for us what some of the intent of this effort were. It grows out of the fact that we have had legislation has been introduced the past couple of years to change the composition of the board, to add to the board seats, and particularly in the permanent member category, if you recall. And this particular piece of legislation raises the questions around what should the ideal composition of this board look like so that the board can be as effective as it possibly can. It makes the point in the resolution that there has been no real change to the charter of the board since it was initiated. It does also indicate not only that there are questions around the nature of the membership, but a question has come from the Senate Education Committee chair, particularly on the size of the board. The question about is this board the right size? So that when you look at the, and also how does the membership reflect our strategic priorities through the strategic plan? And our strategic plan basically has been the state plan. That's what we have focused our efforts on. So that would be the aligned document, even though we had some strategic initiatives of our own that grew out of our initial organization. So we've been asked to complete 3 tasks in the form of a report. One is to make recommendations, including legislation related to the board's composition. The second is any proposed amendments related to the board's charter. And then findings and recommendations related to the development and implementation of a 5-year strategic plan for the board, if any. This is the report we have to prepare. We have assigned this effort to the governance committee to begin the discussion in that subcommittee and bring back conversation to the board around the issues. Since we're having a change in leadership of the governance committee, I wanted to spend a little bit of time today raising the issue of what might be the key questions and topics that this board feels we should investigate in order to be able to meet the requirements or the requests rather of the resolution as it's been presented to us, so that the governance subcommittee has some guidance about what the board's thoughts are initially as it begins to work in this effort as it will at its next meeting in September. So I have some thoughts on what we might consider, but I wanted to open up first to the board about what are the issues that you would feel we need to take a look at with regard to the board composition and organization moving forward in order to be able to prepare this report.
Bob, one thing I think might be really important is for us to go back to the original intent of a representative board. And why was that? And try to understand that first, because I know we've really evolved, particularly going from an advisory board to a governing board. But maybe going back to original intent, particularly around why a representative board was important, I think will help us.
Thank you, Karen. Other thoughts that people might have? Mary.
This is kind of interesting here.
Thank you.
Interesting to hear that again, because when we are doing the transition, I think we discussed this.
Yes,
Why
did.
we have so many people, and then, but there was a pros and cons. So it is interesting to see it was brought back again. And then if there's anything that was bothering them, or they just didn't see the benefits, or if you heard something like that, we probably like to know.
Yeah. I'm not so sure that those are key issues, although there might be some question about, are we moving fast enough in some areas? I think legislators may get a little impatient with us as we function as a board. At the same time, I think the expansion request of the board was a motivator. And the second part of it is, I know that when this was being designed initially, there was a desire to make the board smaller. And there was real discussion in the legislature when the governance board was created, that they made it smaller. It was 19, it became, as an advisory board, we became 17. And there are legislators who have always felt that's too big of a board. So both of those I know were some of the motivation. And I suspect there are others that really relate to the impatience of the board with the speed with which we function. Any other thoughts?
It's why Ale. I think one of the sort of questions I've always, with our board thinking about as we're going through all of the changes was more about forward looking. Things are clearer. They're not as crystal clear as we want them to be, but we know we have the act in front of us. There's the number of plans. And just sort of looking at the work ahead begs the question to me, are we set up in the best
I think we've lost
possible way to be successful to meet there that are present right now? It was about our ability to be effective on the current plans and Act 46 and implementation. Like, are we set up in the right way to be successful in just given what we know in front of us? And then the second one is just acknowledging that we're also very, very busy people, and it's hard to move pieces that we need. And so is there another way in which the board should be navigating or moving? So that's sort of my thinking, just ensuring that we can be the most effective we can be for kids and families, given our current context and the efforts and things that are ahead of us.
Thank you. Okay, yeah, Lenny.
Aloha. I was just gonna throw a couple of things out there that I think about. Yes, I think the size is something that is always on my mind, and how it's managed, and the manageability of a large board. And if going to what Ale was saying, if that would influence how effective we could be. Alongside that, I think another thing that comes up kind of related to size as well is I think that we have a lot of representation of different sectors, but also individuals that could represent other things. And I know that came up when we were talking about neighbor island communities engagement, and there are different purposes. So I think that the purposes of the representation needs to be clear. But when I think about myself and HME, I'm also thinking of center providers and neighbor island communities and all of those things. So I'm just thinking that a lot of us have a lot of different perspectives that we're bringing. So if we're going to be sectioning off these, representatives of different sectors, just to be more maybe mindful of, can you only represent one thing? And then another thing that for at least the Hawaiian medium side is really important for us, and we've seen challenges with, is the capacity to provide a representative with frequent turnover. So that was something that we were trying to work on. I'm not sure if other providers face a similar thing, but there are very few of us that can contribute from the same perspective. And so when we have these, term limits and we're very busy and all of that, I think that should be considered too in terms of, do we need to have that turnover or that term limit? And should this be, being that it is a official language, should that be a permanent seat or be considered as a permanent seat?
Thank you. Anyone else want to add anything?
I have one more question.
Yes, ma'am.
When you say speed,
Mhm.
the government is kind of like a little more impatient. So will you explain that a little bit more? Because I'm a newbie here. So when you talk about the speed,
Mhm.
what do they want us to do faster? And what do we have to do move faster?
I think the basic example is the expansion of public preschool and private preschool and the opportunities. That would be my take on it. I don't know, others may have others. It's just feedback that we've gotten that we could be moving. They'd like to see these things happening more quickly.
That's interesting though, because we are not holding back anything. We have to train people, and then we have reason that we can only move at a certain speed. It's not because we have so many people in the board. So, what else do they want us to do? That we can actually make differences. Even when we say, okay, hurry up to do it, and then we cannot do it. So, that there is a limit, and then there's things that we can do faster. So what else they consider, we should move faster? We moved from the every 3 months meeting, which I signed up for, to the every month meeting now. So, I'm just curious.
But, I think it's the way decision-making is made on a board is a slow process. And I don't know that.
Board's not the implementer.
I'm sorry?
The board's not the implementer.
Yeah, I mean, the board doesn't implement, no. But that doesn't mean they still aren't going to be impatient with us because they want to see some things happen. They're looking at results, maybe.
I think, just hearing everyone's thoughts. So, I think, we really need to look at what is the role of a governance board
Mhm.
and what do we want this structure to bring to accomplish in the long run, right? And that's really what we wanted to do, like, what is the role and what do we want to accomplish?
And I think some would also, related to that, would argue that we have functioned more as a working board than a governing board. And that perhaps we need to shift our focus. And Michelle, maybe that's a little bit of what you were talking about as well, I'm not sure. And it's our job to say to ELL, get these things done. That's what we should be doing. We've had transition time here as well. And we work in a cooperative fashion with our ELL office as well. And that's something we wanted to continue. But some of the impatience, I think, comes from that particular view too, that there was some who would say, you could do things, you could accomplish more if you direct it more. And I think that's a legitimate conversation to have.
And Bob, I just want to echo what May said. And sorry, I realize I'm putting things in chat and people in person may not be able to see it. Just getting really sharp clarity of the purpose of the board. And more importantly, the scope of EOEL. Because if we are a governing board to EOEL, we need a really sharp clarity of EOEL's scope and where they need support. I think that's always been a challenge. The scope is very, 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 very broad in terms of coordinating the early childhood system, but the work that they have underway is pretty specific to ECE. So I think trying to really understand the scope of EOEL will help determine what type of board they need to be most helpful to them as a governing board.
Thank you, Karen.
Sorry, my comment wasn't so much as we direct EOEL as so much as the board isn't the implementer. So when
Oh, I
you're
see,
asking
yeah.
about being faster,
Mhm.
I think the question Marty had was about what the expectations of the legislators for the board to move faster. What is it that they want to move faster on? Because the board is not the implementer of whatever action that needs to be taken. So I think to what Carrie was saying is what are the needs, right? And I would think that the board would help remove barriers so that they could move quicker and not direct them go quicker,
Yeah, I see what you're saying. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
That's just not gonna happen.
And I'm not suggesting
Yeah.
that be the way we do it either. But I think there are some who might say that. Just,
Definitely support the comments that are about, I mean, to sum it up, it's kind of figuring out the function and then figuring out the form that's going to meet the function. And we haven't really revisited that. It'd be great if the governance committee could take a stab at, I think, at what that is and bring it back to the full board. And then I remember a lot of the discussion and even the public comment that we got around this topic was also there was a need to address the term limit. So, I mean, there was one piece that was around neighbor island and county representation. But I do think one thing that is more in the form part is like the term limit pieces and what are the rationale for the term limits for different roles? Because even for us on the ELB, that's not necessarily clear.
yeah, and we have definitely found the term limits really challenging. So yeah, that is one that I have put on our list as something we need to bring back.
Bob, this is Melody.
Yes, Melody.
Yes, I just want to confirm what Justina said and Carrie. I think it is key, the relationship ELB has with EOEL. I think that might impact how fast or slow anything can happen, any decision, result of any decision can happen. The other thing I also agree with is the term limits. And I'm thinking specifically about, just replacing myself, an FC, another person that would know and understand FCILs. That right now is something I'm thinking about, and we replace people so by the time they get started really into the work of the board or any particular plan, their term is up and a new person comes in that has to kind of start from zero or not even have the same kind of experience in that particular whatever they're representing. And I know it is a characteristic of our field to be very inclusive of all of everybody. I think that's what we started out at the beginning. All settings are represented, all the departments are represented. And then it just kind of grew from there. So that's okay, as long as it doesn't, to me, it doesn't affect the process. And maybe that's what people are most concerned about, is the process is being affected now by all of these little things. So I just wanted to throw that out.
All right, thank you, Mel. Anyone else have anything you want to add before we close this conversation down?
This is Matt. I just had we can discuss more, but I had a thought of how we could potentially adjust quote unquote term limits and address basically what Melody said about, when people are hitting their stride, they know what's happening and what's going on, the term ends. Is it something we could explore where we identify who the representatives of the different sectors are then we determine like every 2 years, whether to extend that same person or, right? Because some people may not be able to, right? Because depending on their professional commitments, they might not be able to continue on the board, or they may wish to continue on the board. And it's maybe something that we could take control over and then review that on a schedule. And then, yeah, we decide versus the law itself. But details, it was just a quick thought that I had to address for those folks who can't stay, or you know, they don't have the they don't have the ability to stay, or they have to change, or even if someone retired or left the state, right?
Mhm.
But if people want to stay on the board and continue to you know, work, why can't we just kind of review it and make sure it's still a good fit and then move on? So, well, I guess we'll discuss more of that in the governance subcommittee.
Well, you have something to put on your agenda for your meeting now, Matt, if you didn't have it before. Thank you, everyone, for those ideas and that input. I think it's really helpful. A couple of other thoughts I had also have to do with, if we are going to have permanent seats on the board, what defines a permanent seat? What would make it a seat that needs to be permanent in terms of who that representative is? And secondly, the role of the public agencies as non-voting members, where does that fit into the scope? I understand the rationale behind it in terms of no authority of one department or agency over another. But I also wonder sometimes how free the department members are to be able to share thoughts because they don't have the authority of their director at the moment to be sharing thoughts. But I don't know if that's an issue. It's just something that strikes me as I think about it. So those might be a couple of other things to add to the list to consider. I'm going to move to the next item on the agenda, which is the legislative session coming up. And I wanted people to begin to think about advocacy areas that we would be considering for this coming year so that we can get some general policy areas that we can be supportive of to guide any advocacy and testimony that we might do, particularly because of the challenges that occur with the short-term announcement of testimony due dates without time in between to always discuss bills. And I'm suggesting that people begin to think about this around the larger categories within the state plan, the building blocks. Just as a reminder, the building blocks include child and family health, safety and well-being, family partnerships and support, foundations for early learning, a well-prepared, supported workforce, and coordination of the early childhood system, which has to do with, particularly with data and infrastructure building, all of which we have our hands in at the moment, but we might want to begin to generate some generalized policy statements of where support might go around those larger building blocks. And I'd like to have some conversation as a board about that at our October meeting. So if you would be thinking about those areas for the future, that would be helpful. No discussion at the moment. So we will move to item 9 on the agenda, which is there any additional public comment to be offered at this point in the meeting? Anything in the chat? Again, on that? All right, I'm going to assume there is no additional public comment at the moment, so we'll move to member updates.
This is Matt again.
Okay, Matt.
I have two updates. First update is for our pediatric mental health care access grant project, which is basically to create a referral warm line for pediatricians and primary care. I am pleased to say we have finished our process and we have made 2 offers and received 2 acceptances, one for our program grant coordinator and one for the program specialist. And both of those folks will begin on October 1st. So we're very happy about that. And then the second thing is, I just want to remind folks that we are coming up on flu season. Please consider getting your new influenza year immunization. And also along the same lines, local drugstores have received the new bivalent COVID-19 booster, which offers the enhanced protection, not only for the original COVID strain, but for the 2 variants, the 2 Omicron variants that are circulating in Hawaii. And so folks should consider getting a booster for that. And I think you can actually get both your influenza and the COVID booster at the same time. So thanks.
Thank you, Matt. Any other member updates? Carrie, Carrie?
Sure, thanks, Bob, and good timing, Matt. I wanted to provide an HEICC update, a couple things. We had 2 key national conferences in August that team members that work in early intervention services and also Part B, special education, participated in. One is the Comprehensive System of Personnel Development in Connecticut. And the second is the OSEP DAISY conference on data and outcomes. And I think the big takeaway, and it's not new to anybody, but is the workforce challenges and what we're seeing in early intervention services around vacancies and how that impacts identifying young children with special needs. And so, one of the charges in both conferences that keynotes would talk about is real big and bold solutions to workforce recruitment and retention. And it may not be squarely in the space of compensation, but also looking at other policies that we can be putting into place that help a family's income, so a worker's income. So an early interventionist, what else can we be doing that helps support their family income? There's a lot of interesting opportunities there. And so I think just challenging all of us to think big and bold about workforce. It was disheartening to hear that they said this is going to be a decade-long problem if we don't think big and bold. That's one update. Second update is we're excited to share that Part C will be applying for technical assistance support to integrate the IECMH into Part C services. So that's really exciting. So hopefully we'll get accepted into that. And then final update is please mark your calendars for November 9th. We have our all network 10-year celebration of the ECAS network partners. So celebrating all of you, the work that you've been doing together to move the needle on children's health, safety, and learning. It'll be at Ko'olau from 8 to 4. 8 to 9 is breakfast. Programming starts at 9. And we'll be jump starting with Auntie Punani Burgess and Maya Sotaro, who are going to be sharing about the role that we all play in creating beloved communities and why families are at the center of beloved communities. So please join us for the full day.
Thank you, Carrie. Any other updates? I don't see anyone. Jordana, did I miss anyone? Okay. We are not having an executive session as mentioned at the beginning of the meeting. So we come to the last item on the agenda, which is to review our outcomes and to have a closing announcement from Carrie. The agenda outcomes I have from today's meeting are, first of all, that Napua Rosehill will be taking Ali's seat on the board as a representative of Kamehameha Schools. Matt Shin will be assuming the role of convener of the Governance Standing Subcommittee. Its first meeting will be September 16th at 11. It'll be a Zoom meeting. And we have generated some content for that subcommittee's work to investigate board organization as requested by the Senate resolutions that have been submitted to us. And the subcommittee has some investigative questions and topics to take a look into to bring back to the board. We heard a report today on the IECBH we revised 2.0 plan and have a sense of the direction that their behavioral health efforts are going in. It was announced that the Board of Education strategic plan has a survey and is seeking public input. That's on the website that was shared. We also had two specific action items. One, the approval of a special fund ceiling at $3 million as a request for the biennium budget. And secondly, the sunsetting of the mapping subcommittee with a request to continue a connection with regard to the development of the maps and the results of the maps as they are put together. Those are the outcomes I have for today. Does anyone have any additional outcomes to add to today's meeting? If not, Carrie, do you have some good words to leave us with?
Sorry. So while we are on the topic of collaboration and cooperation, I chose one from Simon Mainwaring, and it's effectively, change is almost impossible without industry-wide collaboration, cooperation, and consensus. So that's just a mahalo to everybody who's worked so hard all together for many, many, many years.
And we thank the mapping subcommittee for modeling that kind of collaboration. And thank you for that effort. We've had a productive meeting with a lot done today. We'll give you a little bit of time back in your day. Thank you to the Seed Center for once again hosting us at today's meeting. And we will see you, oh my goodness, in October is our next meeting. Aloha everyone and take care.